Hi everyone, this is Dawn McCaw. I am the Career Liaison from the Career Resource Center for students in the School of Science and Engineering, focusing on the physical and life sciences. And today I am so honored and proud to have a guest who's going to be joining in a moment. Let's see. Sorry about this. Hi, good afternoon, Hailee. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing well. How are
I'm
you?
good. Thank you so much for joining us. I was just giving myself a little introduction. And of course, everyone, this is Science Chat. I'm Dawn McCaw from the Career Resource Center. And so let me just give Hailee a little bit of an introduction. So Hailee Gilmore, and she has her Master's of Public Health, so MPH, and from Albany School of Public Health. Just correct me, Hailee, if I get something wrong. Thank you. And Hailee graduated from New Paltz in 2018 with a BS in cellular and molecular biology. And currently, she is a project operations specialist with the Department of Health, Office of Health Equity and Human Rights, and is also currently a PhD student in environmental health. So welcome, Hailee, and I have to say I'm just so excited to hear what you have to share today. I think I had shared with you a little while ago that I am also learning about the world and careers in public health, since public health encompasses so much, and hopefully we can just really start shedding light and spreading the amazing things that are all included in public health. And I know you're not going to tell us everything today, or else we'd be here
It's a lot.
for a very long time. But yeah, so thank you. And I guess maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about yourself and your career journey, and yeah, that'll probably take a little bit. So
Yeah,
thank you.
no problem. So I'm Hailee Gilmore. I have my master's in public health from U Albany. I'm also an alumna of New Paltz, where I got my start. So currently, I am a project operations specialist at the Department of Health for the Office of Health Equity and Human Rights. So basically, I do everything that is project related. So any type of project that we have coming up, such as, for example, I work on a working group that is studying racial equity. So I'm on a racial equity working group. I helped create some committees that are across New York State through different departments, such as DOT, things like that. Public health is a giant umbrella, really. It encompasses everything from communications to laboratory work. So it has anything to do with protecting people and improving health across the board. So even if you feel like having an arts degree is not worth it, it is definitely worth it, because you can work in communications and do something such as creative content. If you're a social media influencer, you can work in the Department of Health. If you're a photographer, Department of Health. If you love laboratory work, Department of Health. Anything, epidemiologists, anything such as that. And at first, I didn't know that that was an option at all
Right.
until I was part of the AC squared program at New Paltz, and that's what catapulted me into my career. I wanted to be a doctor, but I felt that a one-on-one approach was not for me. I
Mm-hmm.
saw where healthcare was going, and I wanted to do population health. So being a doctor is one-on-one care, and public health is population health. So I help thousands at one time rather than one person at one time.
No, that's a great way of articulating that. I like that. Um, can you tell us a little bit about your current role and maybe projects that you're working on? That makes sense.
Yeah. So currently, as a project operations specialist, I help with anything that the Office of Health, Equity, and Human Rights needs me to work on. We are a new office that is a conglomerate of new and existing offices within the office, within the Department of Health. So we include gun violence prevention, minority health disparities prevention. We have AIDS Institute. We have, what else? Yeah, those existing departments within ourselves. So anything that they need, I jump on all hands on deck. Recently, I helped write a report for the Racial Equity Working Group. So we took all of the suggestions from a subcommittee and released them to the legislature to give suggestions on how to further racial equity within New York State on a matter of different subjects, such as like school, transportation, access to things. So my job is really looking at New York State as a whole and seeing how we can improve health equity. So equity is the wellness of everybody, giving people what they need rather than taking an equitable, like a equality approach. Usually things are given equally, but what people really need is equitable
Right.
work. So not everybody needs the same stepping stones as somebody else because they're already ahead in the race.
Right.
So that's part of my job, is to make sure that people get what they need, especially underrepresented groups.
I love that, how you're explaining it. It really does make sense about like you seeing the big picture and how to impact kind of systemically. So I just with that project, it gives me a clear picture of what you mean, like the difference of like when a doctor, a physician works with one person,
Mm-hmm.
like both are such important work, but both are needed. So it's like, what is your passion? Where does that lie? So interesting.
Yep.
Okay, thank you. So you mentioned a little bit about AC squared, and were there specific like research or internships or talks or how did that impact you, your undergrad, as how you went in to the field?
Um, it impacted me a lot. I actually have my papers on the wall next to me to remind me of how much work I actually put in, and AC Squared got me there. I will always take a minute to plug AC Squared because without them and their funding, I would not be where I am today. I worked with Dr. Waldo on doing genetic barcoding analysis at first, and then from there I switched it up and I worked with a professor as near and dear to my heart, Dr. Richardson. He led me into environmental health, and I did not see environmental as my route at all because I was cellular molecular. I wanted to
Mhm.
do genetics work, but I realized that that is not where my passions lie. My passions lie in exposures, and that's part of public health is how do we reduce toxic exposures? So I looked at harmful algal blooms and how does nitrogen and phosphorus and many other things affect people's health overall. We were looking at the health of a lake, but looking at the health of a lake is like looking at the health of a person. You have symptoms, you study the symptoms, and then you figure out where are these symptoms coming from? How can we mitigate these things? And that's how I took that jump from public health, from the aquatic perspective to the human population perspective. So working on the Sky Lakes was a huge inspiration for me to go get my PhD in environmental health. And currently I am working on food donation and the environmental impacts of food donation system in New York State. So we have a lot of food loss, and that leads to a lot of environmental exposures due to food loss, such as emissions used to transport foods, as well as different types of global warming causing gases that are released from decomposing foods of unused foods.
So Interesting. Wow. Um, yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. And and sometimes there's just a number of majors that can help you get to where you are, or like I'm thinking there could be students interested in studying environmental science, environmental studies, but really any major that is interested in helping the public, and in so many different ways. And sometimes it can feel siloed in school,
Mm-hmm.
picking a major, but everything works together. I know the departments help with that, how things cross over, but
Yep.
yeah. Okay, great. Let's see. Could you talk a little bit about the transition from graduating to, did you go straight into your MPH program, or just what was that like? 'Cause sometimes that transition can be, it's just unknown.
Yes. I talk about it with my friends all the time. Post grad blues is a real thing. It should be taken seriously as well.
Hmm.
It's like closing a chapter of your life and then opening up a new one. I went right into my grad school education, and I feel like if I had taken a break, I would not have had the same momentum to get started back into the process. I would have
Hmm.
probably got caught up in the daily, just like the daily race of things and trying to pay bills and take care of things that way. Um, and I wouldn't have focused academically. So for me personally, I went right into school, right outside of school, but deciding what I wanted to do was the biggest pressure. My last year, I put that pressure on myself to try to figure out what step I'm going to take. Because I knew personally I could not take a break. I had to keep going or I'd lose my
Yeah,
momentum. But I think for some people, taking a break is a good idea. Because we've been going to school since we were 3 years old. Some of us didn't take a break between high school and college. So those blues of going from high school to college is not the same as going from college to your master's. It feels like you grow up so quick within like 3 months of that jump. You kind of look around at your room all empty, and you're like, wow, like this is the second biggest jump of my life.
right.
So I also want to say that when you make that jump, sometimes you still don't know what you're doing. You may think, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do, and then get to where you're going and realize, actually, no. And it's okay to switch
Yeah,
gears. It is always okay to switch your gears. Never think that you did something and you failed. You didn't fail. You tried it and you just didn't like it, or it just wasn't aligning with what you need going down the road. Take everything as an experience. But post grad blues are a real thing, and it's just something that you take in, and it gives you the moment to look back and think, wow, I really just did all of that 4 years of work. You really hustled and you really did it. And now you can take your break and go into the workforce, or you can keep going.
right. Yeah, just assessing that where you're at. And I know, this is my story. It's not about me, but sometimes you have to kind of figure out what you want to go for, and taking that
Hmm.
time out and working, like you said, for me, taught me I definitely wanted to go to grad school. But it also, I was able to figure out the population I wanted to work with. But it is, you're right, that the blues, that's
Hmm.
definitely a real thing. And then, um, it's just it's very different, but then life is always full of those transitions. So and there's not one right path, as you
Right.
were saying. So yeah, thank you for that. um, what would you say is an obstacle that you have faced in your career thus far, and how you dealt with that?
Yes. This is a common one that gets talked about a lot, is that my family, they were not white collared workers, they were blue collar workers.
Hmm.
So navigating bureaucracy and navigating the corporate world is something that I'm doing myself for the first time. So an obstacle is learning the language and learning how it actually works and trying to navigate where do you go to sign up for these jobs? How do you conduct yourself at a conference? Those kinds of things. And AC Squared taught me all of those things because they gave me the opportunity to be able to do those things in undergrad in a controlled environment with mentors who have gone through this process themselves because my family couldn't be those mentors. So a program like AC Squared that's able to fund students' abilities who could not otherwise afford it was a huge help to that obstacle of me not knowing how to navigate this type of world. And knowing even how to travel. I was not well traveled as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't afford to, but through AC Squared, I was able to do conferences that taught me even how to get on an airplane. I had never been on an airplane until undergrad, or how to make a
Mm-hmm.
poster, or how to dress when you're at these presentations, and
Right.
how to conduct yourself at a table with executives, and how to eat properly, things
Right.
like that. This world is really big, and you never know who
Mm-hmm.
you're going to sit next to when you're in the corporate world. You never know who you're going to meet next.
And who you're
So,
gonna work with later,
yes,
like, yeah, cross paths with again.
yep, and networking.
Yeah, so I think sometimes students hear the word networking and they're like, oh, that's a scary word. Um, what would you say to make it how what it really is, what it means to you?
So, when I think of networking, I like to think of it as I always have like this scenario in my head where I'm like sitting on a train and something happens and you turn to the other person, you're like, hey, did that just happen? Like one of those situations.
Like
I
today,
always like
today
try
with the
to,
earthquake.
right, where you like turn to somebody you don't even know and you're like, hey, I'm so and so. Like I
Yeah.
always try to make a commonality between me and the other person that I'm networking with, no matter how
Right.
high up they are. Um, and that's always
Yeah.
my hook into getting to talk to them. And networking is just another way of making friends in higher places, and letting them see you as a person instead of seeing you on a piece of paper. Seeing me on a resume is just a list of accomplishments, but they're not me as a whole
Yeah.
person and the whole package. So I think networking gives another person the ability to actually have a conversation with you and assess you that way rather than seeing you on a piece of paper and making preconceived notions about your experience, even where you went to school, things like
Hmm.
that.
Yeah, and you bringing things to them and then them helping you and it's a relationship connecting. Yeah, I like that. I love that on the train. May have to borrow
Yep.
that.
Yes.
Um, yeah, and yeah, I think sometimes people think like it's always at some type of job fair and you always have a suit on and it's always formal. But yeah, it's sitting on the train, at the deli, wherever, at
Yep.
a family event, really anything. So yeah, so thank you for that. Um, okay. If what would you, when you think back, um, what advice would you give to your younger self?
Ooh, don't be so don't be so hard on myself and stop comparing myself to other people.
Hmm.
Comparison is hard. You always want to compare yourself to somebody else. It's a good way to push yourself, but also understand that your circumstances are not the same as somebody else's circumstances. Like I am not good at taking tests. So for me, test taking is hard.
Hmm.
Um, but writing is my strong suit. But there's other people who are not great at writing and are great test takers. So comparing my situation to somebody else's is not fair to them and it's not fair to myself, because I'm not taking into account a whole person's package and what they're going through. They may have even studied harder than I did, or they may have unlocked a new way to study that I haven't discovered yet.
Hmm.
So the power of comparison can be a hindrance and it can be a help. But for me personally, I got to tell myself, stop comparing myself to other people. And this may come as a shock, but grades are not everything. It is a blip of your life, and that is all. Schools do not always just look at your grades. They want to see how well rounded you are. They want to see what's your writing ability. They want to see what is your extracurricular ability. They want all of it. So, yes, your grades shouldn't slip by any means, but don't hold yourself so perfectly to get that perfect grade, because the rest of what you have going on is very important too. And that being social is very important. We saw with a whole pandemic that being social is just as important as being in school and getting those grades and trying to apply to higher education.
Yeah, that's powerful advice, definitely. Um, what would you say to a current student, like things to get involved in, like clubs or organizations?
Yes. For me personally, I did independent research with a professor
Mhm.
in science. So I worked for Dr. Richardson towards the end of my school years. Um, get into research if that's what you want to try out. Get into that. There's also biology club. They take amazing trips. I will always remember going on the whale watching trip every single year. Also, I was a part of the Residence Hall Student Association, so RHSA. I was the president of College and Shango Hall, so go Kalango Bulls. I did that for a long time, and I was able to go to the national conference that they have, and that's where they discuss legislation for residence halls. They're not dorms, they're residence halls across the United States, and represented our Northeast region as part of SUNY New Paltz. So RHSA was a big one for me, and that's where I met most of my friends.
That's great. It's great to see kind of the crossover in your experience at SUNY New Paltz. Um, Gosh, you've shared so many great things. You know, one thing you just said, like if research is your thing, do that. And what I think is so neat about being in college is like whether it's research or internships or volunteering or being on RHSA, or you can do a number of those different things and there's not a lot of commitment, like just trying it out. Um,
Mm-hmm.
I know for me, when I was an undergrad, it was like, oh, what should I be a part of? And it's not like you're committing to something for 5 years. It's a short experience that could have a big payoff in terms of, you know, what you're learning about yourself. So,
Yeah,
and what you're doing as well. So Haley,
absolutely.
is there anything else that you want to share with students? I do want to ask you, are you on the Orange and Blue Network?
I don't think I
So I
am.
don't know if we had it when you were in school. I'll send you a link, see what you think. It's a free platform for our students, current students, and alumni, and it's a way to kind of connect and network. And if students had a question for you, then they might reach out to you through the platform. But I'll send you the link to look at.
I
Um, Always trying to.
remember New Paltz Cafe. We used to have New Paltz Cafe. That's how I met my first year
Oh,
roommate, was through New Paltz
nice,
Cafe.
nice. All right. Thank you so much for taking your time. Really
Thank you for
appreciate it.
having me.
Oh, have a great weekend.
You too.
Thank you, Haley.
Bye.
Bye.